I think society was sort of designed so that we wouldn't talk about money. It's designed so that we have a few people at the top and a lot of people at the bottom. I think that's part of the reason why it's like employers saying, don't tell your coworkers how much you're making because I'm paying you more than I'm paying this one and I don't want y'all to know.
Hey guys, thank you so much for being here. A quick message before we dive in. You may be watching the show but haven't taken a moment to click the subscribe button below. So if you've ever gained value from this show, it would mean so much to me if you click the subscribe button right now. And not only will this allow you to see these messages first, all this great content we have, you're gonna get notified first when it comes out. But the bigger our subscriber base grows, the more people we can impact and the bigger the guests we can get on this show as well. So again, thank you so much as always for your support. It means the world to me. Make sure to click the subscribe button below and let's dive into this conversation. Why is it such a taboo topic in general?
Yes.
I think for all classes, all individuals.
I totally agree. It's like it's so funny because, and I wrote about this in my book, like for women, we have shame if we don't have enough money, but we also have shame if we have quote unquote too much.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Because it's like, oh, I have more than them and let me hide it because people are going to think I'm showing off or they have imposter syndrome, right? Am I worthy of having this much money? I've experienced that myself at different times, right? Like you've worked hard for it, but you think that you don't deserve it for some reason. And I think that I think society was sort of designed so that we wouldn't talk about money.
Why?
Because I think it's designed so that we have a few people at the top and a lot of people at the bottom. And so now, then of course the middle class emerged and we've gone through different things as a middle class, as a collective, right? But I think I think that's part of the reason why it's like, don't tell, employers saying, don't tell your coworkers how much you're making because I'm paying you more than I'm paying this one and I don't want y'all to know, right? So it's like, it comes from those places, but it's reinforced everywhere,
Right. Everyone's reinforcing it.
Exactly. And I think
not just corporations or.
Yes. And because there's so much mystery, it's like, I don't know how much you make, right? You don't know, maybe you know how much I make because I talk about it all the time, but I don't, you know what I mean? So like, we don't know and we're scared to make assumptions and we're sort of guessing and we're like, well, if I put mine out there, I might be embarrassed because I discovered that like I'm actually either making too much related to my peers or too little. And I think it goes back to belonging. We just want to belong to a community, to a group. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so because of that, it's like we don't want to do anything that's going to make us not belong. It's just an inherent human need to belong. And so I think that we don't talk about money because we think it's going to affect our ability to belong, whether it means we're too broke or we have too much, or somewhere in the middle.
So what conversations should we be having around money? How consistently should we be having them and with who?
Yes. Okay. So in terms of the conversations I'm having, I'm telling people like, if I get a speaking gig, here's how much they paid me, right? And I asked for more and they gave it to me. So make sure you do that too, right? Like, or I negotiated for higher pay, or I negotiated for profit sharing, or I asked for more vacation days, right? Like we need to share our money earning strategies with each other, especially with, women and people of color, right? Like putting more money, like that's what allyship is, in my opinion, is putting money in the pockets of the groups who need them, right? And who, we have this huge wealth chasm in this country. So like, how can we start to change that? And so that's why I share how much I got paid for a book deal, like all these things that you're not supposed to share. I'm like, I'm gonna tell y'all. Yeah. This is how much I got, this is how I got it, And I think it's important. So I think sharing money-making strategies is very important. I also think one of the things that has been so valuable to me with some of my peers, especially, I will say, my white guy peers in particular, have showed me, like, they have taught me things about, like, investing strategies or, like, oh, here's a strategy that I'm doing with my money, or I'm investing in real estate, or I'm doing these different things. Like, what are people doing with money once you have some, right? Like once you have a little bit more than you need to live off of, what do you do with the excess? And sharing those things, right? Sure. Sharing that information, because it's usually hidden. And it's like, there's a small group of people that know, and you don't know until you have peers who have done it. And then you find out, right? In those quiet conversations that aren't on, on Facebook, right?
Sure.
So
should people be talking with their friends, their family members, their spouses
Yes.
about money? Or
Yes.
what if someone's really uncomfortable, says, you know what, I don't want to talk about the money I make and what we should be doing. What conversation can you have to try to break the wall down?
Well, I think you could say, here's why I want to talk about money. And here's why, like, we have to be, I think if we're willing to be transparent, people will be transparent with us. That's what I've found in the conversations that I've had. And that's how I've learned a lot about money, is by having conversations. You know, like the friend that I was spending time with last night, she's an investor and a financial advisor. And so I was asking her, like, okay, well, what are you investing in and how are you thinking about it? And what is an investment thesis? Like, I don't even know what that means, right? Like, you know, we were having conversations and she was teaching me all of this stuff because I was willing to tell her, like, okay, here's how much money I want to invest, but I don't know where best to put it, you know, that kind of thing. So I think you just got to be willing to put yourself out there first. And I find that people want to talk about it. So when I bring it up and I start sharing, they immediately start sharing because it's like they were like waiting for an opportunity to talk about this.
Yes.
Is what I find. So I think we just got to start doing it and create more transparency around it. And then, it creates opportunity for all. And that's the other piece of it, is like, I recognize that, you know, even someone who would be considered a direct competitor, maybe they sell the same thing I sell. I don't believe in competition in that way. I think there's more than enough money to go around. I think there's more than enough opportunity to go around.
Yes.
And I choose to, like, be friendly with and support my competitors, quote unquote, and vice versa. And that just means that we all get better at what we're doing. We all can serve our clients better, right? We all can make more money. But I don't want to be a person who's closed. So I just got to be me, and it is what it is, right? Like there's going to be some occupational hazards when you're being transparent.
Absolutely.
And you just got to navigate that as best you can. But I just choose to be who I want to be in the world instead of who I feel like I need to protect myself, you know?
What was harder for you, making your first $100,000 in a year or making your first $1 million in a year?
$100,000 for sure.
Why is making $100,000 harder than making $1 million in a year?
Because it's like, I think we're just figuring it out. I also think we're charging too little for our work at that point.
Is this when you're working as a career or when you had your own business or freelancing?
I never made $100,000 prior to starting my business.
Got it.
You know, I went from college to, like, I had a job in between college and law school, and then I went to law school. And then I started my own practice. So
you didn't work at a law firm after law school. So you started pretty much right away being an entrepreneur.
Right.
Which is really hard to do.
Yes. My last salary before I became an entrepreneur was $41,000 a year.
Gotcha.
And, like, really good health insurance.
Yeah.
And I was thrilled.
That was in between law school, or in between school and law school, as I was saying.
Yes.
Gotcha.
No, in between. This was after law school because this was my clerkship.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So, you know, you kind of sign on for a year. Your paycheck is not that big, but, like, and you're a lawyer, right?
You're learning the ropes. You're getting reps.
Exactly.
You're getting experience.
And that's kind of why I decided to start my business at that time, because I'm like, I already don't have a lot, right? Like, I already know how to live off of this amount of money. Yeah. So I'm like, if I can live off of this now, let me keep my expenses this way or lower them even more. Like, I sold my car and we owned a house and we rented it out, moved into a smaller place.
And how many kids do you have at this time?
I had none yet.
Okay.
Oh, well, actually, that's not true. I had my stepdaughter, but she didn't live with us full time.
Okay.
And so that's what I did at that stage, is like, I cut down my expenses as much as I could so that I could build this business.
How old were you then?
I was, 27,
okay.
I want to say,
Got
2009. Or no, 2009 to 2010.
Okay, cool.
This was that year. And then I clerked for the judge and I started my practice. And I was like, you know, I made, like, there were months where I made $500 and months that I made $2,000. And that's why, like, linking together, you know, my friend bought a salon. She was a hairstylist. She wanted to buy her first salon. I did the transaction. She was purchasing an existing business and I charged her $500 for that. I don't think I've actually ever told anybody that.
That's cheap.
Because I was ashamed. I was ashamed that I didn't know what to charge for that. Wow. And that I undervalued my services so much that I, like, literally have never told anybody that I charged $500 for that. And she's still a good friend of mine.
Wow.
And she's...
That's not her fault.
No, it's not her fault. She made bank with that salon, and she's since now sold it.
But you also got experience doing that, doing that transaction, that
Totally.
deal, which you'd probably never done at that level.
Yes.
Seems like. So you gained confidence from that.
Yes.
So there was a win there for you as well.
There was a win. But when I saw how many hours of labor were involved.
You put like weeks probably, right?
Yes, I'm negotiating with the other side, dealing with like a difficult lawyer.
And $500 is a steal.
I mean, for the whole thing.
Can I hire you for that?
I should have charged $5,000 minimum,
right.
But it was like, but I learned from that. I add value. Of
course.
I can figure it out, and I have a skill in that. I'm trained in knowing how to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that was kind of like working on the job experience. Like you weren't fully probably experienced for that yet, it sounds like, but you learned, okay, I didn't need to do these 10 hours of calls that I did here. I could have done this in an email or whatever. I don't know how this works, but whatever it was, you learned your process to simplify it, to maximize it. So
exactly. And back to that $100,000 question, I think that's why. It's like we're figuring it out. Usually we don't know exactly what we sell in those early stages of the business, so we're selling everything. Whatever people come to us with, we're like, yeah, we could do that. We just create a custom offer for that.
Whatever money we can bring in, we'll do it.
We will take it. And so you're very busy. I call this stage busy bee because you're very busy at this stage, but nothing's refined, nothing's efficient. Everything is just sort of like your massive labor towards whatever you can make happen. And so that first $100,000, I think you are hustling for that. But in order to get to $1 million, or at least to do it in a way that feels sustainable, you need systems, you need process, you need team, right? And so now you're starting to build a sustainable business. You're not just, by brute force making money.
And you need to clarify your offering and your audience and your niche and what your specialty is. You're
exactly.
I'm not just a lawyer that can do anything you want me to do, but here's what I really specialize in.
Exactly.
And here are my 3 packages at these different levels. And And you
and
go all in on marketing that.
Yes. And there's money that you're saying no to.
Absolutely.
You learn that lesson that not
Isn't
all
that
money
crazy?
is good money.
Isn't that crazy?
Yes.
It's so, I say this a lot to people. I go, it's weird that I'll turn down massive checks all the time.
Yep.
But I'm just like, that's not what I want to do, and it doesn't serve my mission.
Yes.
If it's not serving the mission, and I don't need the money, then I shouldn't do something just to bring in more money.
Exactly.
For me.
It's a distraction.
At different stages of my life, a different season, I just said yes to everything. When I'm broke, you say yes to all these things.
Yes.
But then when you're like, okay, I'm here for a mission, and to serve at the highest level of my skills and abilities, that brings me the most joy and brings others the most joy and benefits the most number of people, then you start saying no to money, which is crazy.
Yes.
It sounds crazy, doesn't it?
It's delightful. I love it.
No,
I feel like, to me, it lets me know that it's like I've not made money my master.
Yes.
Right? Like, it's very important, but it is a tool.
That's good. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not beholden to it, and I won't trade anything for it. There is plenty of things that I will not do, and I don't care how much you pay me, So I think that it's good to remember that. And so when you're turning down opportunities, it's just an example of like, okay, I'm doing things right.
Well, I think you got to understand that just because you turn down money over here doesn't mean it's not going to keep coming to you. Like, just because you turn down something that's not right for you doesn't mean abundance of something that is right will keep coming to you.
There's so much opportunity. There's always more where that came from.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's powerful. Okay, so the first 100,000, how long did it take you? How many years until you made 100,000 in 1 year? Can you remember? Roughly.
So my first year in business, and it was like, I started September 1st, 2010. And so from that year till like September 2011, I made like 60 grand that first year.
That's right.
But I think the first full 12-month calendar year was like year 2. So it didn't take too long.
And then how long until you made 7 figures in 1 year?
Yeah, that took me 7 years.
After that, From starting business.
From September 2010, I think maybe it was 6. It was like 2016, 2017.
Yeah.
I think 2017 was my first 7-figure year. And I had gotten close, but not, almost
Crossing,
there, but not quite. And twice. And you know what? It was interesting. What happened is, like, I had my business, my revenue was doubling in the beginning. It was like I made 100 grand, then I made 2 or 250. And then, then I made 500. Then it's
like
I plateaued.
It's like, okay, 560 and
right.
620.
I know. It started making me mad. Like from 500 to 700,000. I think I was there for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And there was all kinds of stuff going on in my life. One, there was a lawsuit that one of my business partners. So like, this is one of the things where too trusting too quickly caused some issues. So that was a huge distraction for me at that time. I had 2 babies back to back.
Wow.
So, I was busy with them. And then there were just a lot of lessons I needed to learn. Like I had all these people working for me, but I didn't have good boundaries. And I just kind of let them do whatever they wanted and didn't have, like I was learning how to become a boss. I was learning how to become a leader and a manager.
It's so much more challenging than just doing your skill. Like, let me just be good at the law thing, which is what people wanted me for.
Yes.
Now they want my business for that and me, but I've got to train the team and
to deliver. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
It's a different skill.
It's totally different, and it can be challenging. And I think that's why a lot of times we're like, well, I'm just going to go back to doing it myself. And it's like, you can, but it's going to keep you small.
Yeah.
You have to say yes to those challenges and learn that new skill, right? And I think leadership skills are so valuable for everybody. So, I had to learn that, and it took me a couple of years to figure out how to have stronger boundaries, figure out how to stop letting people waste my time, figure out how to charge for what my services are worth, right? All of those things, those were lessons that I was learning in that time.
Who was wasting your time? Like clients or
everybody?
Employees or
clients were wasting my time, team were wasting my time. Even family members, right? Like my desk was right in the front door. So it's the door is here. My desk is right here. My husband would be coming in and out. He's a stay-at-home dad at the time, taking care of the kids. And he just ran a tight ship with our household. It was amazing. I had so much support in that way. But he would every time he came through the door, wanted to talk to me, interrupt me.
I gotta focus.
Yes, exactly. Was I didn't know how to create boundaries around my work time. And I did eventually learn it. I started getting up at 4 a.m. because I was I'd get up at 6 and these kids would, they could tell, they had a radar the moment I woke up. So then I would get up at 6, I would be okay, I'm going to beat them. I'm going to get up at 5:30. Nope. Still get up with me. 5. Nope. 4:30. Nope. 4 a.m. and they stayed in their beds.
Wow.
So I was fine, I'm getting up at 4 a.m. every day then.
Is now the time to start investing, or is it more just save up some reserves for 6 months to have some cash to live your life before you start investing? Or is it important to build the discipline and the habit of investing $50 a month, $100 a month in a diversified portfolio, no matter how much you're making?
I remember going through this because I didn't have any money. And
when was this, right?
This was 1982, 83. I had to borrow $4,000 from my dad to help to take care of my family bills. So I remember thinking, how many weeks could I live if I lost my income? And I started counting in weeks, and I would try to go out because if I got hit, so I think that's the way to do it. You start to count how many weeks. Can it be a month? Can a year? Can I get up to a year? I didn't like debt because of the fact that there's an obligation, and it's if I get, then I'm going to be drowning. I'm trying to keep my head against water. This is just my own bias. But anyway, count how many you can, and then assume that its buying power over the next number of years can fall by 3 or 4% a year, or if you put it in a risky investment like stocks or something, it can fall by more. So cut that number maybe in half and have twice as much, because you have to understand that that's your freedom. That is your safety. So that first band you must take care of. That first band, take care of that. Once you get past that and you feel, okay, I could take care of my family and I could take care of mine in a worst case scenario, then you have the freedom to then take other kinds of risks. But when you're building that portfolio, it's the same thing as when you have a lot of portfolio past that, just you want to diversify well, because you could see what happens to the markets. Every market, stock market, bond market, most markets have had times where they've gone down over an extended period, 60 or 70%. So in buying power. So I think diversify, count that and build it, and realize that's your saving. One thing I do for my kids and grandkids, and always did, or as long as I could start to afford it, was for every holiday, like Christmas or their birthday, I would give them a gold coin. And I said, I never want you to sell that gold coin until there's an emergency, a real emergency, never because you want to buy things. And the reason I did that, and they'll build over a period of time, that'll build something. And I said, don't even sell it. You pass it to your kids unless there's an emergency. Okay. And so you're building that savings, because I think we so easily spend so much money on junk. So anything that I would give them, whatever it would be, I don't know, a piece of clothing, a thingamajig, a toy or something,
right,
will probably be gone in a year.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the power of saving and that resource, the relief it gives you and the power it gives you is so great. So yes, save it, diversify it.
I'm gonna continue to stay on this topic, but also go off a little bit, because you mentioned how, I guess it was 40 years ago, you lost your money and you had to borrow $4,000 from your father to just kind of survive and pay your bills. Think of all the amazing things in life that are expressions of just you. For instance, the song you stream over and over again while you're in your 13th hour of gaming at 4 a.m. in the morning, with all the lights off, trying not to wake up your roommates. Or the recommendations that you share with your friends on the top 6 comedy podcasts that are the best to listen to on your way to the gym and back. Or even your new haircut, which may or may not be an epic bowl cut from the 90s, and hopefully is. Everything that makes you, you, makes all the difference. State Farm believes insurance should work the same way. Your plan, your coverage, they need to be personalized to you. And the ability to choose the plan you want by picking the options that fit you, like building your home and auto policies, is exactly what the State Farm Personal Price Plan is all about. Getting the coverage you want at an affordable price just for you. So, are you ready to make things personal? Call or go to statefarm.com today to create your State Farm Personal Price Plan. Prices vary by state. Options selected by customer, availability, and eligibility may vary. How much money had you built before then, before losing it?
I don't remember. It wasn't like it was a ton.
Gotcha.
I was fairly early in my career.
Uh-huh.
I had a small investment business. I don't remember what it was exactly, but it wasn't a ton.
I'm curious how you, from having some money to losing it, how you then went on a 4-decade run of getting to where you're at now. Was there something in your mindset that allowed you to believe in yourself still?
Yeah. Okay.
That didn't say, oh, I've lost it all. I don't believe in myself anymore because I just ruined my finances.
That extremely painful experience was probably the best experience of my life.
Really?
And it changed my way of thinking, ways I'll describe. But let me say, before that, I didn't have much money. My dad was a jazz musician. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And I felt, of course, rich. I had 2 parents who loved me. I went to public school, and then when I was a kid, I did odd jobs and I caddied. And so when I put in the stock market when I was 12 and I got hooked on the game. So I never had much money, but then I built up some and then had that experience. And so that experience, which was also a very public experience, was very painful, but it changed my approach to decision making in really a profound way. First, it gave me the humility and fear of being wrong that balanced my audacity to double check myself and, in fact, try to find the smartest people I could who disagreed with me to have them stress test my thinking. So I'm never sure if I'm right. Like my track record of being right is probably 70 or 75%-ish, somewhere in that 70%, let's say, something like that. And I'm used to being wrong sometimes, and it's painful. So the stress testing of my opinions gave me an open-mindedness to learn a lot, and also diversification. I learned how to diversify without reducing my risks. If I could take a lot of uncorrelated bets, the return will equal the average of those bets, but the risk can be up to 80% less. And it changed it really caused me to reflect, because I remember thinking to myself, it felt like I was sitting next to a jungle and I could sit on the safe side. There's always risk in return. And what would I do? Would I have a less great upside and be safe? Or would I go through crossing this jungle at which things could kill me or whatever in an attempt to have a great upside, a great life, a great upside? And so that puzzle led me to do the things I described, but also I knew that I had to go have the great upside and not be constrained by the risk. And so I did the two things that I've described, but going into the puzzle, I found that it was great that to find people who could see things that I couldn't see, and vice versa, so that we were on the mission together, because people see things differently. I learned how people see things differently. Somebody will spot this or that, and then that back and forth helps you make better decisions. And if you're on the same mission with them. So one of the things I wanted was this meaningful work and meaningful relationships. And I found that that was so good that when I, sort of got to the other side, like, I had enough money and upside or whatever, I still wanted to stay in the jungle, and I still wanted to do this, because the act of doing that with people that I was doing this meaningful work and meaningful relationships with was rewarding in and of itself, as well as success. So one of the things that you can learn is that you can see through other people's eyes. That doesn't mean you accept what they say blindly. It's that you think about their reasoning. And if you do that, that's good. It also gave me a principle, which is like one of my fundamental principles, which is pain plus reflection equals progress. Okay. We have this pain, whatever it is. And okay, the reaction is a negative reaction and can almost be, why did that thing happen to me? And so on. If instead, when one calms down from the pain, is a lesson there about how reality works. Okay, it happened. Reality works that way. And then there's a thought, how do I deal with it better to produce better? What's my lesson? And if you acquire that, I would acquire that. I still acquire that. And then I wrote them down as principles in my books. That's why the collection of principles, it's like a journal. I wrote pain plus reflection equals that. And then you write down the principle and that's what the collection of principles came from. That event, that painful event was the basis.
Winter is coming. Yes. We all know winter's coming, right? To coin a phrase. But that winter is the best time on earth. And I know that's counterintuitive. And I don't mean like being a positive thinker. I mean pure facts. So in the book, I take you through 10 facts. I'll give you a couple of them right now. Yep. The first fact I give people is, why do people not invest? They're afraid of failing. If you're a millennial, right? So you grew up witnessing 2008 when you were still relatively young. How old are you now?
33.
Okay, so you were what, 27? What?
2008. Yeah, 27, I guess.
Yeah, 27, 28 years old. So you're a young man, and you're watching the world melting down in front of you. Yeah. For most millennials, they are the first generation since the generation that went through the Depression that is not investing at the ratio they need to, even close.
And they have more debt than everyone probably, right? With all the
They have more
loans.
College debt than everyone, absolutely true.
I have a friend that has $400,000 in debt, dental school.
President Obama just paid off his debt 5 years ago while he was still president.
No.
I swear to God.
Oh my gosh.
It's mind-boggling. And he had a bunch of scholarships, but the last bit, it took him that long. So what I tell them is, listen, paying off your debt's not enough. You've got to become an owner or you're always going to be in that place. So yes, pay off your debt, but here's what you need to know. You got to become an owner. You got to get in the game, but you got to understand the rules of the game. If you don't know the rules of the game, the old phrase is, when a person with experience meets a person with money, we know the phrase, the person with money ends up with the experience, the person with experience ends up with your money, right?
Yeah.
So I teach people the rules of the game so they don't get screwed. But the most important thing is this. Winter's coming, but people react. So let's take last year. Last January, 2016, we had the worst stock market opening in the history of the stock market. First, I think it was 10 days.
Yeah.
There was a drop of $2.3 trillion with a T.
Crazy.
Everybody's freaking thinking the bear market's here, the market's over, the crash is here. I think the market dropped 800 points one day. And on that day, all the richest people in the world were in Davos, Switzerland, for the big conference that they do every year. And they went there, MSNBC went there, and everybody's freaking, what's happening? What are we going to do? And they said, let's go ask Ray Dalio. Now, your listeners may or may not know Ray Dalio as, if you're not in the financial business, probably never heard of him. You probably heard of Warren Buffett, but Ray Dalio's done more. You had to have a $5 billion net worth and $100 million to give him, or he wouldn't talk to you 10 years ago. Now he doesn't care how much money you have, he won't talk to you because he's got a closed fund. But they go and they put Dalio on television, CNBC, he's the king. What do we do? And he says, well, you don't need to panic. Corrections happen all the time, but you need a strategy that when markets go up and down, you don't go up and down. And he said, I spent 15 years of my life to perfect such a strategy. All of my money's in that plan. And he said, it's called All Seasons, and I've never revealed it before, but I gave it to Tony Robbins. He extracted from me, and it's his book. So you got to go read his book. This is what he says on national television the day the markets are crashing. And that day, to give you an idea, which is the beginning of February, I think it was 9 days into February, the market was down 9% in the first 5 weeks of the year. His strategy, which he gave me, which has made money 85% of the time for the last 75 years.
Wow.
It's averaged a 10% return, just under, and the average loss, when at 15% loss, was 1.6.
Right.
So if you go to Vegas and you could spend 85% of the time make money, and when you made money it was 10%, your loss is 1.6, you go forever. His plan made 2% while the market was down 9%. So it was up 11% difference. Now, I'm not suggesting that's the only strategy to do. There's many. His is the smoothest ride with the least risk. But what it did was a combination of that, and then right after that, I interviewed Fed Chair Alan Greenspan. He was the head of our economy, the most powerful man in finance for 19 years, 4 presidents. He was there running. I was just with President Clinton this last week. He was the Fed chair for him. And I interviewed him for like 2 hours, or 3 hours off stage, 2 hours in front. And I asked him in the very beginning of this thing, I said to him, I said, look, if you could be put in the Fed today, what would you do? And he looks at me, and as I said, he leans forward and he says, resign. So I look at that and go, oh my God, I need to write a book that'll free people. So here's what will free you. Everybody's afraid of the crash. So here's what you need to know, 2 terms you should understand. Correction versus crash. Anytime the market drops from its high by 10% or more up to 20, it's called a correction.
Right.
If it drops 20% or more up to 80%, like in the Great Depression, then it's called a crash or called a bear market. Okay. So how often does a correction happen? How often do we have to be prepared for it? Since 1900, we've had a correction on average every year for 116 years. So when is winter coming? This year on average.
Every
It's
year.
like, how often does winter come? You wouldn't be surprised if it stormed and rained. Now, some winters are long, some are short, some are harsh, some are light, but winter always comes. So I wasn't panicked when this happened last year. I'm not panicked whenever it happens because I know it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
How long does it last? Average, 56 days. Okay, so just under 2 months. What's the average drop during that time? 14% over the last 30 years, 13.5 over the last 100 years. So I use the more recent one. 14% gets your attention, right? 14% you get a little gut check.
Yeah.
But here's what you need to know. 80% of all corrections never become a bear market. 80%. So all this fear, and what people do is what you said you did, is they see it, it's freaking out, I'm losing money, I'm the hell out of here, and they get out. The stock market never took a dime from anybody, only you can take it from you. You sold, that's why you lost.
Right.
So if you look back and say, what was it like in 2008? I can remember vividly being with my platinum partners and saying, you see these $80 stocks? This is 6 months before the crash. I told them in April, I brought them to Dubai, and I said, these stocks are going to go to 8, and some are going to go to $1.
Wow.
And by October, and I told them what to do, so they were able to get out. October, I go on the Today Show in October of 2008, and they go, Tony, there's been $3 trillion meltdown. Pump the country up. You got 4 minutes. like,
ready to go.
That's not what I do, first of all. And I said, I'd be a lie. I'm not going to pump up. At that point, the $80 stocks were 8. I said, some of those, I said, I'm not a market forecaster, but I work with Paul Tudor Jones, one of the greatest investors in the history of the world, in the biggest market crash in history, 1987. He made 200%.
Wow.
When everybody else was losing their entire life. And I've been coaching him continuously now for 24 years, every single day. Wow. So I said, I work with the best in the world. And they're telling me, based on history in the 30s and history in the 70s, this $8 stock, some are going to be $1. And I remember the day in March of 2009, Citibank, which had been, I think, $70, sold for 97 cents. You could go and take your money out of the ATM. It costs you more to take your money out than to own the bank, right? And then I told people it'll jump from 99 cents to $6, $10, $12 in a month or two, and it's exactly what it did, right? So what you got to know is corrections happen every year. You got to know they're a couple months. You got to know it's 14%, and you won't lose because 80% of the time it doesn't go to a bear. Now, what about the bear? The bear market, it happens, to give you an idea, in the last 100 years, every 3 to 5 years. We've gone 8 without one. We're way overdue.
Yeah.
So in modern years, last 30 years, it's about every 5 years. The average length of a bear is 1 year. The average drop is 33%.
Wow.
A third of those drops go 40% or above. That, I don't care how well prepared you are, that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
But it is the greatest opportunity in your lifetime to go from wherever you are financially to where you want to be. I hope your audience is listening right now. Hear me. If you want to leapfrog and you're a millennial and you think there's no future, or you're, a baby boomer and you think you're too old and it's too late, the greatest gift you have is coming. I know it doesn't sound like it. This is not positive thinking. This is the truth. Wall Street, the stock market, is the only place that when things go on sale, people freak out. If I said, you like Ferraris?
Sure.
If I said to you, Ferraris go on sale for 50% off.
Awesome.
But when I tell you Apple's on sale for 50% off, you go, oh, what am I going to do here? What's wrong? The whole world's coming to an end. If you think about it, how old are you?
33.
33. So let's assume if you were 35 and you lived to 85, you got 50, 52 years ahead of you. That means you have 52 more corrections to live through.
Right.
That means you're probably in those 50 years going to have 10 more bear markets to live through. If you're going to have a gut checks every time, or you're going to leave out of it,
Right.
if you didn't participate because you thought, oh, the market's too volatile, I can't trust it, all that stuff, you missed 250% return in the last 8 years. I mean, you've missed out on everything while you're waiting for things to be better. And if you won't do it when it's like this, when it crashes, you're not going to get in.
Sure.
So here's the good news about the bear. The good news about the bear, average ones a year. Could be longer, but that's the average. Could be shorter. But here's what's cool. Every single bear market in the history of the United States has led to a bull market, meaning right afterwards. So 2008, this plummeting, what happened in 2009? Up 67% in a year. I can show you every single bear market, and the next year when it comes out, it's this explosion. Now, that's not true in every market in the world. It's true for 2 centuries in the United States.
Wow.
So that's why Warren Buffett says, I want to be greedy when people are afraid. And I want to be afraid when people are greedy. If you remember 2008, he was telling everybody, buy. He was having the time of his life. Buy, everything's on sale. So what you have to do to become unshakable is turn, the metaphor I use is turn the snake into the rope, meaning we all know the story. It's the middle of the night. You're walking through the yard or someplace and you see a snake and you're freaked out. You pull back, you come in the morning and it's a rope. Once you know it's a rope, you're never afraid again.
Yeah.
I want to take for people investing and show them how to turn that snake into the rope it really is. And I'll tell you one final stat on all this. People always say, and you started bringing up timing. How do I time it? Like right now, things are too expensive. I want to wait. People have been saying that for 8 years. Is there going to be a correction? Yes. But when it corrects, you want to invest again. You'll get dollar cost averaging. If you paid a little too much here, you'll paying less here. It'll bring the average price to a reasonable place. It's going to allow you to succeed. But here's what people need to know about timing. If you are not in the market, it's the most dangerous thing. This is so counterintuitive, so I hope your audience is listening. Let me show you. There's 2 different research projects. One was done by JP Morgan. I just spoke for them the other day at their Alternative Investments Conference. And to be in the room, there are 400 people. You have to have $1 billion network to get in the room.
Crazy.
It was mind-boggling, right? So JP Morgan did a study and also Schwab did a separate study, 20-year studies. In the last 20 years, to give you an idea, the average S&P 500, that index, has produced 8.2%. Over 30 years, it was 10.28. But in the last 20 years, a little bit less. Still great. You double your money, roughly you're in a position where you double the money a little more than every, what is it now, 7.2, so it'd be like a little more in 10 years. But here's what they found out. If you miss the 10 best trading days in 20 years, because you're trying to time the market and you're not in it during one of those days, you went from 8.2% return over that period per annum, per year. It dropped down almost half, 4.5. What are the chances of you knowing the best 10 days to trade in 20 years? None, right? Warren Buffett said, market timers and market forecasters are only there to make fortune tellers look good because no one can do it successfully. Even if they do it for a while, it doesn't last. It's luck. Jack Bogle told me, he started Vanguard, $3 trillion company. Wow. He said, we took gorillas, 1,000 in a room, and had them flip coins. And we said how many times they got heads, how many got tails. Just gorillas flipping them randomly. And he said one gorilla in that set of those turns flipped heads 21 times in a row. Now, when you look at that and see all these gorillas doing it, you look out and say, what a lucky gorilla. He said, but in the hedge fund industry and the mutual fund industry, when somebody does 10 in a row, you go, what a brilliant investor.
Right, what a genius.
And it's just averages and luck at that time.
That's it, yeah.
Before the interview continues, if you feel like you're not living your most authentic life, not leaning into your purpose, and not living the life that your future self would be extremely proud of, I've written a new book called The Greatness Mindset, and I think you're gonna love this. Through powerful stories, science-backed strategies, and step-by-step guidance, The Greatness Mindset will help you overcome all the different challenges in your life to design the life of your dreams and then turn it into your reality. Make sure to click the link below in the description to get your copy today. Okay, let's get back to this video.
In fact, he showed me that 96% of all mutual funds fail to match the market over a 10-year period of time. Only 4% make it, and they're constantly changing.
Crazy.
So the statistic I want people to know is, if you miss the 20 best trading days in the last 20 years, just 20 days in 20 years, one day a year in 20 years, and you're wrong on timing. Your 8.2 doesn't drop to 4.5, it drops to 2%. You might as well have been owning a bond and have no and have no risk.
Right.
If you miss the top 40 trading days, to give you an idea, you are minus 2%. So you got to get in the market. And if you're saying, what about my timing though? Study was done by Schwab. If you got the perfect timing for the year, the right day, the best possible day to buy, some people, the worst day, someone else dollar cost averages, just keeps spending the same amount every month regardless of prices, and somebody stays in cash. Who has the worst return?
The guy trying to time or no?
Cash.
The cash.
You get nothing for cash.
Gotcha.
The guy who was the best had the best timing.
Got it.
The guy that was the worst, the guy that dollar cost average and the one that was on the worst day were almost identical. But after 7 years, there was only a $20,000 difference in accumulated assets between the worst day and the best day. The worst was not being in the market.
Right.
So you got to be there. And I'm not saying put everything in stocks. We teach in the book all these different assets to diversify.
Yeah.
But stocks in the last 2 centuries have provided the highest return. So you have to have significant exposure to that if you want to get the highest return.
Got it. And what I love in the book, you say that 80% of financial success is psychological, 20% is mechanical, right?
Yes.
So it's not about timing and trying to figure all these things out and when's the best thing or the best fund or best
This is not
whatever.
about trading, it's about investing.
Exactly.
Trading is trying to do that, and most people lose money trading. Even the guys that tell you make money, see how they're making money 2 or 3 years from now. They usually eat the dust, right?
Exactly.
So yes, you've got to have the psychology, and my best way of psychology is not to pump you up. If you want to be unshakable, you want to be educated, and you want to know the facts. You want to know, look, every 5 years, I'm going to get a bear, maybe 3 years. I'm going to get a correction every year, but I'm going to be in the market and make money. Do you know that 6 of the 10 best trading days in the 20 years happened within 2 weeks of the worst trading day? So when Trump was elected, the market dropped, I think it was 800 points that night. Then at 3 or 4 in the morning, he made a speech where he was somewhat, human and normal, and the market got all its money back, and since then we're up 14% in November, December, January, in 3 months, February, 3.5 months.
If you got $1,000, I would just keep investing in yourself until you got another 1,000.
Okay.
And then invest in yourself. Now you got 2,000 invested in. You go. You should start making money faster. At some point, you should start every time you make an investment in yourself, if I put fuel in my car, it's supposed to take me further.
Right.
Right. So if I invest in myself, then, and look, you know, there's things I bought that I didn't get a return on right away. But I didn't quit investing in a course or a workshop or training or education because it didn't work.
Or your health, or
I spent 17 years going to school. None of it was any good for me. But it did teach me. It did teach me how to go to school.
Right.
You know,
How to study.
how to go there, how to complete a course. Like I completed college. I'm not proud of that, by the way.
You're not proud you completed it? Why not?
No, because it was stupid. It was ridiculous. I should have dropped out. Like I knew it was a bad thing.
What'd you major in?
Majored in accounting. It's a good degree. It's not like just some, you know, business degree.
Right. But you should have dropped out of it. Why?
I should 100% because I'd have a 5-year jump on my career. But the problem is I was on drugs. So you know,
Actual drugs?
if I wouldn't have been on drugs, I would have quit college because I would have had enough confidence in myself. When you're on drugs, you can't have confidence because you know you're drugged.
Right.
So everything is second guess because my self-esteem was like through the basement. And so I'm like, I need to quit college. But everybody around me is, oh no, you got to finish college. You got to finish college. I'm like, what do I know? I'm a drug addict.
And if I drop out, I don't have a degree, no one's going to hire me. And
I didn't even worry about any of that because, you know, I didn't worry about that. I just didn't have the confidence to follow my intuition. You can't when you're
on drugs.
When you're not yourself. So what do you do with $1,000, right?
Right.
You know, I think you just got to keep investing in you until like, oh now I'm making $3,000. Okay, boom, reinvest all that again. But what we do is we start taking it off the table, right?
We save it, we don't invest it.
So I think people just need to get on that cycle of like, okay, I'm going to keep repeating this activity. I'm going to reinvest some money in myself, go to the workshop or whatever. Monday, I got to be hustling again. Until, okay, now I got $4,000. Okay, now I got $5,000. Now the income's starting to pick up. Income has to pick up. The income should be an indication that whatever you're learning is helping you.
That's interesting.
Until one day you're like, okay, I have more money here than I can actually
invest in myself.
I can't, there's nothing I can go to get rid of this money. You need to get rid of that money though.
All my free time is going to my workshops. I don't have more free time to invest in me.
Yeah.
I'm developing skills. I'm working. I'm earning more.
Yeah.
Now, what's the next step?
Yeah. And now it would be, okay, I got to spend money on marketing. I wouldn't I wouldn't go look for an investment right now. I'm going to spend money on marketing now. Now I'm going to spend money on marketing to get me more leads. And I would, big mistake I made in my career was not spending more money on marketing.
Because you turned, what, 50 when you really started investing in?
I was 51 when we started playing the social media game. And I was probably 55 or 56 when we started spending money on marketing.
Wow.
Yeah.
51 when you started doing social media.
Yeah.
And then
I should have been spending money. I should have been spending money when I was 25 years old. When I was selling cars, I should have been spending money on ads. But I was scared, man. So
what made you not scared 25 years later, 26 years later, at 51?
I started studying, hey, what do all these successful people have in common? Whether it was the mattress dealer, the car dealer, the furniture dealer, or Elon Musk, they spend money, man. They spend money. They spend a lot of money. And they don't worry about money the way I was worried about it. They used money, They used it. They didn't save it. They didn't hoard money. And the greatest companies on this planet today, the ones that have some of these companies have lost money for 25 years. Look at Amazon.
Yeah.
Reinvest. 1.7 million employees. When I started, I remember I looked at Ernst Young. I said, I had a buddy that worked at Ernst Young. I said, how many employees you got? He's like, 240,000.
Wow.
And I'm worried about 10 people. What am I thinking? So when I quit studying individuals and started studying people, everything shifted for me. When I quit trying to be when I quit worrying about what Bob was doing or Pete or whoever, and started saying, hey man, what is this big company doing? Because that also relieved me of being competitive with this guy, Pete, and started saying, okay, I'm going to go do what Coca-Cola does. That's when I bought the plane.
Right. Really?
Yeah.
How old were you when you bought the plane?
I was 50, maybe 55, the first one. I bought it because I studied what Coca-Cola was doing. They bought planes. I said, why are they buying planes? Oh, then I learned how they write them off. And then I learned how they trade them every 3 years.
That's crazy.
So notice every 3 years, I'm trading a plane. I'm getting rid of it, replacing it with another one. But what are they using it for? They don't use it for pleasure. They're not using it for Instagram photos. Right. They're using it to go and set up headquarters in other countries.
Wow.
You know, so that's when I wrote, if you're not first, you're last, because when I started studying these companies, I'm like, Coca-Cola's everywhere. You can't go any place and not see Coca-Cola. And I was like this big. I was always thinking about what can I keep? Mm-hmm. And they were thinking about how many shells can we get on? How many eyeballs can we see? Mm-hmm. So that's when it all clicked for me, you know, and that goes back to that thing about the financial misinformation, right? It's like, who am I studying? And that's when we started, you know, open up the funds for I went to New York City to go walk in Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan's offices. I wanted to walk in and see what it was like. These are multi-hundred billion dollar companies.
Crazy.
You know? And I walked in, I was like, oh my God, man. It just all hit me in a second. I've been doing everything wrong.
What were they doing different?
They own the building.
They weren't renting the building.
They own the building. Well, they don't care if they rent. They could rent it, but they own the elevators were bigger than the studio.
Oh, right.
One elevator.
It's crazy.
And 60 people got on that elevator and went to the 120th floor. And then there was six of these elevators, people going up and down. Everybody told me, don't take people's money. Do not let investors invest with you. Keep the whole deal for yourself. The second I walked into Goldman Sachs.
Because all they're doing is getting investor money.
That's all they do. Okay? And the difference is, what I do is I could go to Goldman Sachs. I was there. They would give me money. And I'm like, I'm not going to get money from them.
Why not?
I'm going to do what they do.
From individuals.
Exactly. From my friends, from people that follow me, from people that support me, okay? Goldman Sachs will give money to anybody.
Right.
Okay, they don't know how to go to these people. They're not on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or TikTok. So I'm going to create a fund where I can tell my audience, hey, Lewis, you can invest with me. I'm going to kick Goldman out of the deal, or JP, or whoever. There's a bunch of these guys, you know. It's not that they're doing a bad thing or anything. I'm not saying they're the devil, but they're close. Okay, because they're not going to call you up and say, how you doing, man? Mm-hmm. You know, without saying, hey, you got any money to invest? Mm-hmm. It's just not, you know, that's not what they do. Their job is to make money, period. So anyway, when I saw that, I'm like, okay, these are the richest institutions on the planet. They fund everything that happens. The company BlackRock and Vanguard. These are probably going to be worth $20 trillion each in the next handful of years. They say they'll own 99% of all the assets on planet Earth, not just in America.
How are they able to do that?
Because they scale, right? Because they think big. So they're funding everything. Everything that happens on this planet, from media to pharmaceutical, is going to be funded by those two companies.
Wow.
So it just, when you're studying your rich uncle or the neighbor down the street, the think is only so big. And then when I started studying these other companies, I was like, okay, this is who, if you want to create that kind of legacy wealth and really help a lot of people, because they are in a position to help or hurt a lot of people. That's the scale you got to think at.
Yeah. But it took you really 25 years to get there, to start thinking that way. Is that right? Because you weren't able to see yourself spending money for 25 years. You were just trying to earn more and more and more.
Yeah, because I was just trying to, the grind was such a low level grind.
Mm-hmm. Let's say you had the right information at 25.
Yeah.
Let's just say you had a rich uncle that did what these people did and you got to witness this.
Yeah.
Do you think that you would have been able to get there faster?
Yeah, 1,000%.
Or do you feel like money only comes to you when you're ready for it?
No.
Like when you're ready to make it and when you're ready to take on the risk or the responsibility?
Sabrina will never make the mistakes I made, okay? Because she won't get in the wrong car. I got in the wrong vehicle. I didn't know. The vehicle I got in when I was 28 years old, I could actually make $100,000 a year doing this. My daughters will never get in that vehicle.
What will they do?
They'll be like, I'm not getting in a $100,000 ride. Right. If it can't bring me, they're going to be like, hey, if this doesn't have $1 billion possibility, they're going to pick this is the wealthy. They put their kids, their kids see things differently. If they're not ruined.
Right.
You know, if they're not completely ruined and scathed by having whatever they want, then they'll see opportunities different.
Yeah.
You know, but when you see the possibility, then you're like, I'm not going to get in that car. I'm going to get in a spaceship. So if I was 28 again today, I mean, I would know what industries to pick.
Top 3 industries to pick.
Hedge funds have to be one of them.
Really?
Advertising and marketing's got to be a space to be in. And probably, you know, something to do with healthcare. If I could scale healthcare. If I could scale the organic alternative medicines. You know, so those are 3 massive spaces. Maybe financial too. Maybe the financial world. You know, in the next 30 years, we're probably going to have a disruption of the dollar.
Right.
You know, and the way money's. Maybe we're a cryptocurrency, you know, environment in the future.
Yeah.
So any of that's going to happen. You know. But the reason I would go there is like Jeff Bezos. When I saw the first interview with Jeff, when he was saying he was studying algorithms, I think he was at one of the big firms, selling stocks
Before Amazon.
Yeah, before Amazon, and then he saw something came across his desk where there was a spike in internet activity, eyeballs going to the internet. That's when he said, "I'm going to go do Amazon," and he followed traffic. I didn't ever follow traffic. He followed scale. He followed scaling possibilities. And then what did he do? He followed the traffic, the possibility. Then he invested in the possibility. And then he went into debt on the possibility. And then he was willing to not get paid any money. But what did I do? I need money today. I got to have money this week. Need to have a little more money next week. And if I get a little more money after that, I'm going to save it all. And then I'm gonna go do that again. And I'm gonna feed the bank, and I'm gonna keep feeding the bank. I don't even know how much money the bank's made off of me for 25 years. We don't know anybody that works harder than Grant Cardone. And as soon as he gets a bag, he brings it to us. What do? Hey, y'all wanna borrow this money? Now repeat that 300 million times.
Wow.
And that's the American people.
What about a family that's thinking, you know, I really feel comfortable having 6 months to a year of savings because I got kids, I got, you know, the rent, I got all the bills.
Yeah.
What do you say to someone who's like, you know what, I see where you're coming from, but maybe I don't feel that comfortable yet?
Well, then keep, you know, money. If you think money's going to save you, you know, you're just, again, they're stacking information on top of bad information. Okay, you know, the money that you have saved in the last 6 months has probably dropped 11%. So the money that you got $100,000. I got to have 6 months of savings. I need, you know, 4,000. My bills are $4,000 or $5,000 a month. I got to have 30 grand in the bank. Got to have 30. But they really have 180. So first of all, I guarantee they have more than 6 months, and they don't even know it because they're living out of terror.
Right.
It's not logic.
Right.
You say it's logic. I need 6 months, but you got 3 times more than you need.
Sure.
Number one. Number two, you've never had an emergency that cost you 30 grand in your lifetime. Very few people ever had that emergency. Everybody hears about it. Oh yeah, my guy got in a bad, this happened, blah, blah, blah.
Car
whatever.
accident or this.
But if you had assets, if you'd been investing in assets, you can always go use those assets for collateral to solve your cancer surgery.
You can get a loan out from the bank.
100%. Or if you just took the money that you earned and keep reinvesting in assets that pay you, not assets that you wish one day will pay you, but assets that pay you every month. If you keep investing in that asset class, one day your cash flow will be your emergency account. My emergency account last month paid me $1.6 million. My cash flow,
That's crazy.
Free cash flow.
That's crazy.
That's no work involved. That is not 1 second of one day. Okay, and that happens every single month in my place. But that's been because I made a bunch of investments for the last, 25 years.
Right.
End of every year, I dump all my cash out every year. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you need to get as close to zero as you can. And replace it with assets that in January, if I dump out in December, January, I want a payment from that. It doesn't have to be a big payment. Just needs to be a drip off that asset.
Something, yeah.
So I'm not gonna buy a cup because the cup won't pay me. So in December, I had a bunch of money. Boom. I'm like, make a deal. You were in it, yes, a couple days ago.
Yeah.
You
bought that house.
Take that cash, that garbage that you have. I already had a surplus of money. So if I can't buy 2 of these, I'm not going to buy 1 of them. If I can't write off some portion of it, I'm not going to buy it. If I can't do it out of passive income, I'm not going to touch it.
Interesting.
So those are my criteria for making investments, right? And it needs to cash flow. So I took a bunch of this cash that was sitting here just deteriorating, not providing me with safety, and took it and put it into this asset. And people are like, you're ridiculous. You paid that much money for that thing. Okay, we'll see, So I buy this thing. This thing will provide rental income. I think this year I'll make $3 million on this deal.
Wow.
In cash flow.
And how much do you have to put down? Or you to buy the whole thing?
Well, I paid cash for this house.
Gotcha.
But the reason I did it is not because this is a great deal, but this is a terrible deal.
Keeping the cash.
Keeping the cash is garbage. This Malibu house is probably one of the worst investments I ever made.
Why?
Okay, but I had a bunch of surplus cash. I had already bought in December. We bought almost 2,000 apartments. If I could have got another apartment deal, I'd have bought another apartment deal with a $40 million. But I couldn't.
You couldn't find one.
I couldn't find another deal. Okay, I still had this money left over. End of the year, it's just a thing that I do. End of the year, dump out. Literally, like flush the toilet on your savings. So every day I look at my savings accounts, okay? It's not because I'm worried about any more money anymore. I know for sure the money's going down in value. Everybody knows that this year. Your money is depreciating, right? It's dropping down in value. What you were told that is 100 grand is not 100 grand. The bank's not even telling you the truth. It's 100 less 11,000.
It's 11% right now?
Could be 34% less. Some people think it's going down 34%.
That's crazy.
But you're going to still see 100 because this is invisible taxing, right? It's inflation.
Wow.
So I know that. I know it's not 100. So when you guys look at your checking, I got 180,000. You're lying to yourself because you're not doing all the math on money. This is why Mike Saylor went and took all that money he had and invested in Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, yeah. Because
he's done the research. So I would listen to him, and I'm not saying you guys should go buy Bitcoin, but I'm not buying Bitcoin at those levels. Okay, I'm buying assets that can provide me with more cash, with more income. Maybe I should be buying Bitcoin. I don't know. But anyway, so I dumped this out. I dumped this for now. I've been shopping this piece of real estate for 19 months. I've been working this deal for 19 months. Wow. So I'm not being like, okay, I just got to go buy something. I'm not going to do that. But I'm trying to get rid of this cash to go into an asset that has the potential to go up in value over time. I dump out in January, okay? I do 3 webinars. That's why everybody wants to know, man, what's the rush to make more money? Because I'm broke, man. And I got a new house.
Right. You got bills to pay now. You got expenses.
So January 1st comes, I've done 3 webinars already to start filling this up again. Right now, if I walked into January 1st with $40 million sitting in a bank account, dude,
you're not hungry.
What's the rush, bro?
You're not hungry.
Yeah, let's plan. Let's do some planning this year. But what I do is I dump out. So every year for the last 15 years, every January, I end up with more assets.
What have you found are the top places that people should be investing?
Well, I think first you start with what are the most important things that you're closest to, like, is it your business? First, calculate how many days, weeks, months, or years you can live on your saving. Because when you do that, you'll gain security. You'll gain that, okay? So look at how much you're spending, okay? And then say, how much do I need? And whatever that number is, you're going to need more than that, because it may go down rather than go up. So, okay, now do I have a year's spending? Okay, so I think you start there. Then you start to think, what are the things that are most important for me? Like, and then you start with your business or your residence that have a symbiotic relationship and that you know well. Let's say if you start with your business, okay, you're closer to that, investing in yourself with whatever that may end up being. That may be your best investment.
Not
Okay.
real estate, not stocks, not the market.
Well, it depends. If you're not, if you're doing something where you can do it yourself, and that's the thing. But if you're in a job and that's not the thing,
Right?
Because you're in a different position. Okay. But anyway, and then I really think there's something good about your home. a basic thing about your home, because it's nice forced savings. And it also means that you fix it up. You know, you're saving, you find out there's, oh, well, if I add this thing or that thing, and you're enjoying it. Mm-hmm. So when you're enjoying it and you're controlling it and it's yours and so on, that's pretty good. And if, you know, if they keep mortgage tax deductions and so on, you know, there might be some benefits to it also. Okay. But that's not a black and white answer. You know, so you could take a sharp pencil and say, is it better to rent or buy? Okay, that's a different question. Maybe yes, but by and large, am I going to move? You know, all of those other questions. But so when you start with, okay, what is it that's close to home and how much? You need a certain amount that's liquid. In other words, you got it in your house, you got to make a mortgage payment or something, and all of a sudden you're, you know, it's not liquid and you lose your job. Well, that can cause you trouble. So how much do I have that's liquid? How much do I have that's not liquid? Okay. And you start to get those things right. Okay. I've got enough liquid. I got enough, okay, not liquid in those other things. Okay. Pretty soon you're getting yourself in good shape.
Yeah.
You do those things, you know, you're pretty much in good shape. And then you're also having some experiences, and then you go beyond that, you know, and then so you start to, okay, what, you know, okay, what's a stock? What's a bond? And then, you know, you learn through experiences. I learned through my experiences. I started when I was a kid, 12. I used to caddy, and I took my caddying money and I put it in the stock market. And I was lucky. What happened to me, by the way, is I took my caddying money and I bought the only company that I ever heard of that was selling for less than $5 a share. And I thought that, you know, well, I was really dumb. I thought I'll buy more shares, so if it goes up, I'll make more money. And it was the only company. It was a company that was about to go broke, but some other company acquired it and it tripled. And I thought, this is an easy game. And I like it, easy money. So, but you know, you experiment and you learn.
You're a very philanthropic individual. You and your wife, your foundation, your company, you give back in a lot of ways. Some might be through donations like computers, some might be through financial, some might be through just your work and your content on LinkedIn, which is amazing. I recommend everyone subscribe to you on LinkedIn. The content there is amazing. You're giving back in lots of ways. I'm curious, what's the greatest gift a rich person or someone with money can give someone who doesn't have money?
To give the knowledge, teach a man how to fish is better than to give him a fish. I mean, I think you can give them both. You can give education and you can, but ability, the capacity to be productive, because, you know, if I can give you the capacity to go out in the world, it's like go into a jungle. I give you a knife and can you live in the jungle? Okay. If I give you that capacity, that's the best thing I can give you. That's why I wrote the book and, you know, pass it on. I wrote those principles over years and I wrote them down, and that's what I want to pass along. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
But if you've got money, you can help people a lot in a lot of different ways, which is thrilling.
What would you say then are the three greatest skills that people that aren't financially abundant or that are struggling financially should learn to master in order to be in a better position financially? 3 skills, what would you say they should learn?
Well, as I said before, I remember watching the movie, I was young, David Copperfield with W.C. Fields, and he speaks to David Copperfield, and he said something like, and I'll put it in dollar terms, you earn $100 and you spend $105, that's misery. If you earn $100 and you spend $95, you'll have a good life. I mean, it wasn't exactly like that, but it was, but basically, I know so many people who don't earn much, but are there. Because if you start to think about what it is that it costs you to live in terms of, let's say, the basics. You know, give me a bed to sleep in, give me the food, let me be educated, and so on and so forth. I think most people can get themselves in a position where, you know, they're net positive.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can be net positive and you could do that, you know, that's number one, as I carry that. So that's, you know, that's number one. Then I guess it was the list that we went to. You know, the second is, you know, what do you do next in terms of what do you need? What do you invest in?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then, you know, going beyond it. And then avoid the following mistake, the most common mistake of investing, thinking that the investment that did good is a good investment. People rather more expensive. The things that quite often, those markets that did really, really well became more expensive, and everybody, smart money, is all the time comparing them and competing. So what happens is the naive money buys the thing that was hot or is hot. The thing that has been terrible, which might be the thing that's beaten down. So I would say also an important element. Okay, so here's another one that's really important. Diversify.
So don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right, because what I learned about this is that, first of all investments compete. And it's not easy to tell whether one investment is better than the other, because if people could do that, life would be easy and everybody'd make a ton of money. And this is a competitive game that's very difficult to compete in. So it's very difficult to say which one's better or worse. You could take experts and you could and do all sorts of tests, and you'll find out that they can pick that, and you can't tell whether the worst ones are going to be better. So because of that, you understand that even picking the best ones is difficult, and particularly if you're naive. Like, we spend hundreds of millions of dollars each year on research to try to give us an edge.
Wow.
Okay. Now you've got to compete with us. So competing in the markets is more difficult than competing in the Olympics. You wouldn't go think I'm going to compete in the Olympics, but there are more people who try harder in order to do that. So it's a zero-sum game. So, but diversification, that they're different, will reduce your risk without reducing your return.
Yeah.
So if you know how to diversify well, so that's critical. So I would say, again, get your savings right. And the reasons I say, I would say, have great humility about what you don't know. Don't buy the thing that was hot. Don't just because you think it's hot. And then know how to diversify.
Most people believe they inherited it all, right? You see somebody with money, you think, oh, mom or dad handed it to them. The truth is 79% of the millionaires that I talk to, first generation wealth builders. They didn't come from anything. Right. These are people that focused and built money over time. Next myth, well, if you're a millionaire, you make a high paying job, right? You got big income.
Yeah.
Nope. A third of the millionaires that we talk to never made six figures in a single working year.
Really?
Think about that for a second. Dual income, never made six figures. So that blows that myth out of the water. A third of the millionaires that we talk to.
Wow.
Right? Now you think about six figures nowadays, it's more prevalent than it's ever been.
Mm-hmm.
But
a lot of people with six-figure salaries have nothing in the bank.
Thank you.
Because they just spend it all.
That's exactly right.
And they're using credit constantly to buy bigger things.
That's right. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. So what happens is people tend to think that income is so important. And I tell you, no, it's not. Because I was one of those people. I remember I was making about 30 grand. And I thought, all right, when I get serious, I'm 1 year out of grad school making 30, 40 grand. I said, all right, when I make this amount, I'll start to get serious about my money. Well, you know that path, right? Well, when I make this amount, and the next thing you know, lifestyle grows and you never end up taking control. But these are regular, everyday people that took control and were focused. It was amazing. So let me tell you this. Top three positions of the 10,000 millionaires we studied. Number one was engineer. which doesn't surprise you, right? They're good at planning.
Yeah.
Accountants.
Organized.
Yeah, accountants, same thing. They were number 2. They're good at counting stuff. Number 3 was teachers.
Wow.
Teachers.
They're not making that much.
Exactly. And you think they're undervalued, underpaid. How are teachers doing this? Well, if you think about what it is, wealth building is a long-term view, right? Not a quick hit. And so these get rich quick schemes that we see on TV at late night, they get me riled up because they're preying on people. But these people were people that built wealth over time, investing in their 401k, their 403bs. So anyway, the goal of this book is to let people know the American dream's not dead.
Yeah.
It's alive and it's well, and it's available to people. We just have to take action.
Absolutely. What are some of the things that they do on a daily basis, these millionaires? What are some of the steps to take? And how do they think differently than non-millionaires?
Great. 97% of the millionaires that we studied feel that they control their own destiny. Now think about that for a minute, because we have a victim mentality issue in America today, where we want to blame somebody for us not achieving something or getting in our way. So these millionaires think differently. 94% of them live on less than they make. So that means if they're making $100,000, they're living on 70 or 80, right?
You can't build wealth if you live on more than you make.
That's exactly right. And that's where the credit cards people start extending themselves and using credit cards. But 73% of these millionaires never carried a dime of credit card debt.
They never carry debt.
Debt.
Yeah.
Right.
You might use a card, pay it off every month.
Pay it off.
Yeah.
And so the mindset, and I love to give people in economics and a PhD in economics, interest that you pay is a penalty, right? If I use someone else's money, they charge me, right? That's a penalty. Interest that I earn on my investments is a reward, right? So why choose to penalize yourself? Don't use debt. Get yourself out of debt and invest and grow your money to reward yourself.
Yeah. Powerful.
Yeah.
Now, how have you managed to, through all the stuff you've gone through, I'm assuming the last, 15, 20 years, you've gone through some challenges. You told me before off camera that you have a child who has special needs and was told that they wouldn't live past a certain age. You're, I'm assuming you've had challenges in relationships, with business partnerships, intimate relationships, family.
Yeah.
The more wealth that I've accumulated and the attention that I've gained, there's more people with handouts, expecting, whatever it may be. How have you personally managed the emotional challenges that have come your way by not letting it affect your mindset around money so that you don't do things emotionally with your money?
Right. Well, I mean, I've been there. I don't know about you, but I've made some mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay. And, a mistake that you make 1 or 2 times, you can call it a mistake. But when you keep doing it over and over, it's not a mistake anymore. It's called a choice.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm a man of faith. So obviously I'm rooted there. But I got good people around me.
Yeah.
I got good friends, people that have known me since my childhood, people that know me for who I am. So I'm not an author and speaker with these people. I'm just Chris. And so those people keep me rooted, right? Mama Hogan is no joke either. Okay, she'll keep me rooted. And so I think it's really important to understand, what am I trying to accomplish? Like, I don't want notoriety. I don't want to be famous. I want to be known that I help people think bigger, right? And so staying rooted in that, it helps me to be very, very clear on what I'm doing. People will come up and tell me, "Oh, Chris, you changed my life financially." And I go, "Oh, whoa, pump the brakes. I didn't change anything. I gave you some information. You did the changing." And so I think it's really important as we help people that we stay aware of who's doing what and our role.
Yeah, I think there's a story about Marcus Aurelius where he would go around the town and he had someone just walk with him, beside him, and say, "You're just a man."
I remember that.
Every time someone would praise him, be like, "You're just a man."
Can you imagine that? I mean, seriously.
Isn't that cool?
How rooted does that keep you? John Wooden's got a quote, and he says, "Be careful of fame, because fame is man-made. And if man giveth, man can taketh away."
Absolutely.
And so being aware of that, I think, is really, really important. What's the heart behind what I'm trying to do?
Yeah.
And so, if I travel and I go speak to 10,000 people, if I get one person whose eyes light up and they start thinking differently, then I've done my mission.
Yeah.
Yeah. Biggest challenge was definitely the diagnosis of my youngest son, Case. At age 2, they diagnosed him with this rare genetic disorder that could kill him. It could take away his speech, take away the ability to walk, ability to eat, and eventually end up on a feeding tube. It was the scariest moment of my life, sitting in that doctor's office holding that 2-year-old boy.
Wow.
Listening to that. And went to some dark places over a few years.
Really?
Well, you know what us men do. when we have challenges. We're not as smart as women.
Yeah, we don't share.
Women go share.
Yeah, we don't share.
Men don't share. We isolate.
Yeah.
And then we internalize, and then we stuff, right? And so you can imagine working through something like that,
The weight
isolated.
you carry.
It messes with you.
It does.
It messes with you.
It does.
That was the biggest challenge I've walked through in the last 15 years.
How did you get through that initial few years of stuffing or pain?
I just stuffed. I didn't do what I should have done. Isn't it amazing how hindsight's 2020?
Mm-hmm.
I wish I would have sought out those close friends, and they would check on me. And
But you just wouldn't open up.
what would I say?
I'm good.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm all right. And I wouldn't. And so that was a learning lesson for me that isolating is dangerous. That it's good to reach out and get help. It's good to have people you can be real with. And I came to this realization: we need 4 people in our lives. You need a mentor. That's just somebody that's having some success and can guide you. You need a coach who will push you. Right. You and I know word coach means something to us, right? Because they will get on you. They will drive you, because what's the goal? To try to help you to get better. But you need 2 more. You need a cheerleader. You need somebody that believes in you. They're not worried about what you achieve. They believe in you. And that's important to have. And then you need a friend. You need somebody you can be real with, that you can just say what's on your head. They're not holding it against you. You can be honest. So if you get a mentor, a coach, a cheerleader, and a friend in your side, that's awesome. But I want to encourage people to do this. Not only find those 4, you need to be one of those 4 for someone else.
You need to be 4 of those things. Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
You need to be a mentor.
Yes.
You need to be a coach.
Yes.
A friend.
Yes.
And a cheerleader.
Absolutely.
For someone else.
For somebody. And when you do that, now what it does is it takes the focus off of you. One of the things you and I have in common is I firmly believe that if you've ever walked through a mess in your life, that it qualifies you to be a messenger.
It does.
When you've gone through some stuff,
you learn.
That's right. And if you're willing enough to be transparent to share it, and you're not worried about people's opinions, the impact you can have on someone else to give them the courage to try or to reach out and talk, that's a big deal, man. This life is hard. It's not meant to be done alone.
No.
Yeah.
Wow. Who is your mentor, coach, cheerleader, and friend?
Oh, yeah. Well, mentor is obviously Dave Ramsey.
Yeah.
This man has been an incredible mentor for me, just guiding me. And then over the 13 years of being with him. My coaches, man, I've got a lot. Yeah. I've got some people with walking with me spiritually. I've got people that are walking me from a business perspective. I'm constantly reaching out to learn. I'm like a sponge all the time. That's big. Cheerleader, Mama Hogan.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my number one fan right there. She's behind me. I've got all kinds of family, uncles, and everybody. They're just for me. Friends, I got amazing friends. Childhood friends, people at the office, people that care about me as an individual, not just what I do. They know me.
Not the book.
No. They'll call me out.
Yeah.
They'll call me out. I got a call from a buddy the other day. He goes, dude, how's the road? He goes, you keeping your head clear?
Yeah.
You stay in focus? And he said, don't believe the hype.
That's right.
And so what he's telling me is, hey, keep helping people. Keep your heart in the right place, And so it's good to have those accountability people to check in with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just keeps your heart in the right place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say is your biggest insecurity, fear, or challenge right now? You've been through different phases of your life, and as you grow and expand, I'm assuming there's new challenges that you overcome and then new stuff that maybe you haven't overcome yet.
Right. I think my biggest fear is, am I doing everything that I could be doing? Right. I've got 3 boys. They're hilarious, 14, 13, and 11. And these boys are my legacy. I grew up with a single mom, so my dad wasn't around. He came around with birthdays and holidays or whatever, but he wasn't there. So when I had started getting ready to have kids, my goal was to try to be the dad that I wish I would have had. And so that puts some weight on you, right? But I was hanging out with my boys, and we were somewhere, and I saw a poster of a little boy at a bus stop with a duffel bag, right? And he was just sitting at a bus stop, and I can't even remember what was under it. But I saw that little boy, and I thought of me, right? Like waiting. And then I realized, man, oh man, in my own life, somebody somewhere is waiting on me to become what I was destined to be. And so if they're waiting on me to become who I was supposed to be, to impact their life, how long am I going to make them wait? And so what that means is that I need to do everything I'm capable of doing, and some things some people say I can't do. just to be able to help that person somewhere that's waiting to hear an encouraging word or something to impact their life.
Yeah.
So that's something that drives me every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it that people say you can't do?
Oh man, I've had people tell me I couldn't write a book. You know, my first book came out in 2016, Retire Inspired. I told a good buddy of mine, I told him I was working on a book. He goes, man, you can't write a book.
Really?
Yeah, and we were in church, right? I wanted to punch him in the eye. You can't hit people. Can't hit people in church. I got a feeling that's a sin, right? Somewhere. But then later on, when I finished the book and at the book signing in town, he was one of the people there. And I realized something. What initially he said was that I can't write a book. What he was saying was it's not something he's ever thought about doing. And it's not something that he could do.
It's his beliefs.
That was him, right? And so for me, that was a grow up moment. He wasn't putting a limitation on me. He was speaking his own limitation, right? And so I just remember that and I go, oh no, limitations. And so that's where I said, I'll accept compliments from anyone, but I ain't accepting limitations from nobody. Right. And that's anywhere in my life. You don't get to put a limit on me. That's what I love about, Dr. Martin Luther King. The fact that he had the courage to have a dream, but the courage to share it, that's something I want us all to have that mindset of. Stop thinking about what people say you can't do. Opinions are like yesterday's. Everybody's got them. What are you deciding in your heart to go do? Now start to go do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, man. So what do you do now in terms of your own wealth? How are you? You've probably learned a lot again over the last 20 years from the banking world, like selling services. You learned a certain amount to get to one level. And then you realize some things work well and some things don't work well. And then you got to another level of your wealth. And then you realize, okay, now I've got more wealth. Some things work and some things don't work. And you keep, I'm assuming, expanding. And I'm building my wealth. I realize, wow, there's always something to learn.
That's exactly right.
There's always stuff. Now there's taxes. Now I've got to learn how to invest my money. Now I've got to learn what's the right places and all these things. So what's the phase you're at right now, and what are the biggest lessons you've learned in the last couple of years?
Okay, so the phase I'm at right now is obviously continued growth, right? Because with inflation, costs are going to go up. So you can't hide money in a cookie jar and just put it in the ground. It's got to grow. So with me, I'm always looking, but I'm understanding risk more. These latest crazes that come out, I just cringe. Cryptocurrency,
it's crazy, right?
Bitcoin, right? Now there's this thing out there. It's not even real. That's been given a value by somebody that's not regulated, right? And so when you look at this, you would laugh at that. But we've had people seriously pursue that. Day trading years ago was a big thing. So for me, what I'm doing is I'm trying to be smart with what I do, but I need to be crystal clear on what not to do. Meaning I don't want to take unnecessary risks.
What are the things that are non-negotiable you won't do?
I'm not doing debt. I am not doing debt.
So what's that mean for people?
That means I don't borrow money. I'm not looking to borrow money to leverage, borrowing money from my home to invest, no leverage schemes. I don't borrow at all. And I'm crystal clear on what it is I'm doing, meaning the longer range view. Lewis, what I started doing years ago was I started making 2-year decisions. I wanted to make a decision today that I look back on in 2 years, and I'm glad that I made it. Now imagine
what are some of those decisions?
Oh gosh, staying allergic to debt. I have people come to me all the time with business opportunities. They're like, Hogan, listen, if you put in this amount, we're going to do boom, 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 boom. And in looking at that, I have to be smart enough to say no, right? That if it looks too good to be true, we know it is, right? But I think it's more about I think I've made more money by not doing things than I would have by going down a path.
And did you invest in certain things early on where you're like, that seems like fun and interesting, and you're like, I never got my money.
Oh yeah, no, I learned my lesson.
I've invested, I think, 8 startups over the last 8 years, and guess how much money I've made?
How much, Lewis?
0.
How much did you invest? Give me a ballpark.
Probably about 250 to 300 grand.
Okay. All right. That's not as bad.
I wasn't going big on it. I was like, let me just dabble.
Yes.
Let me just get in the game, play with it.
That's right.
It's okay if I lose it.
Right.
I had the mindset I'm gambling.
Right. Well, and that's exactly what I did. But here's it. And you know what? You paid a dollar amount, but you learned some stuff.
I learned some stuff.
You know what you're not going to do ever again.
Exactly.
And see, to me, that's valuable.
Yeah.
Because obviously, as things grow and profiles grow, the risks grow.
I invest in my own businesses. I also invest in some startups. Startup investing is very risky. 9 out of 10 startups will statistically fail. So I know that when I invest my money in these startups, a big chunk of this money I will probably never see again. But my goal is now that a small piece of these startups that I invest in will